We turn our focus now to Core Laboratories. It's an oil services company based in the Netherlands. Stock up more than 3% today, but this is not just a daily phenomenon. It's up more than 43% over the last year, and just year to date is up more than 20%. Well, Core Labs is one of the more than 100 companies participating at the Enercom's 2011 Oil and Gas Conference in Denver this week. And the president and CEO, David Demshur, is joining us now with more. David, great to have you here on Fast Forward. Thanks for making the time. Your stock is doing well. You know, we just came off a tough week. A lot of companies have suffered. Tell me about Core Labs and what you're doing differently.
Okay, Lisa, first of all, thanks for having us on Bloomberg. When we look at Core Laboratories, we focus on returns on invested capital and free cash flow. The stock has held up remarkably well. Our all-time high is about $118, and I think today we were closing back in on $110. So it's the concentration on return on invested capital and also looking at free cash flow that I think has propelled the stock over the last number of years to do very well.
Now, oil and gas prices have been fluctuating pretty rapidly. We're actually having an up day now, but we've really come back quite a bit on oil since the beginning of the year. Tell me, how does your company fluctuate with those prices? Are you fully hedged versus fluctuations in oil price? And sort of what is your target price?
Yeah, fortunately, we are a very internationally oriented company. 70% of our revenues come from outside the United States. 70% of our revenues are tied to the prices of crude oil. However, the projects that we work on tend to be 4, 5, and 6 years in length. So we don't see the gyrations that oil prices do. Our revenue streams, because they're tied to these long-term projects, tend to be a lot smoother and a lot more consistent. So as we look for the future, the company will become more interested in becoming more international and more tied to crude oil.
You know, speaking of the future, talk to me about your technology and how it's changing the way or advancing the way that oil and natural gas is produced.
Yeah, one project that we're working on in the Middle East right now, this is an oil field that has about 40 billion barrels of oil in place. We're coming up with some technology where we're mixing together CO2 and nitrogen and light and heavy hydrocarbon gases, re-injecting them back into that reservoir, and hopefully that reservoir will produce an additional billion barrels of oil. So this project will last about 10 years, and this company that we're working for there should yield an additional billion barrels of oil on top of what they're producing today. So that's just a microcosm of one of the projects, of the 1,500 projects that we're working around the globe. And of course, we're trying to help our clients produce that incremental barrel of oil. The incremental barrel of oil is the cheapest barrel of oil in the reservoir.
Where geographically are you finding the best partners to work with? I mean, back in July, there was some news about you eliminating over 300 positions, and I think this was all based in the Russian market, looking to streamline your operations there. Is it difficult for you to do business there, and where else are you facing some headwinds?
The business in Russia is not as robust as we would like to see it, and we're just trying to right-size our workforce there so we can maintain our industry-leading margins. Areas where we have been very active and successful include West Africa, East Africa, Asia Pacific, especially offshore Australia, where there are some giant natural gas fields being developed by Chevron. Also, when we look at the Atlantic margins, offshore deepwater Brazil, in the pre-salt, there have been multi-billion barrel fields that have found there, and Core Lab is going to play a large role in maximizing the daily production there. Moreover, maximizing the amount of oil that's going to be extracted from those fields over the life of the fields.
All right, David, we have to leave it there, unfortunately. Thank you so much for joining us. That was David Demshur, President and CEO of Core Laboratories.